We've all heard it before. X player will break the NBA, and usually it's a video about Cole Aldrich or something, and we can all pass it off and enjoy a good laugh together as a community. But what does it even mean to break the NBA? Has an NBA player ever done it? Let's find out. Oh yeah, and subscribe, please, right now. First, we have to define this term. What even is breaking the NBA? In a literal sense, break means to separate or cause to separate through a block, shock, or strain. Metaphorically, for an institution to quote-unquote be broken, I'd have to assume that everything they had going for them and everything they thought to be true would be shattered by a singular player, breaking the mold and breaking the norms for the time. There obviously isn't any real, factual definition, but that's my interpretation of the term, and that's the definition I'm going to be going with. These players are the kinds that force the NBA to go back to the drawing board and reconsider everything they thought was stable about their game, because they found a way to finagle their way around or exploit or simply just change the rules and norms. In my mind, breaking the NBA doesn't just mean you're really good at basketball. I'm going to put this out there right now. LeBron and MJ did not crack the list of my guys to break the NBA. Their rises to stardom were done in very explainable ways that didn't revolutionize or change everything we thought about basketball. Jordan was a traditional mid-range shooter with fantastic defensive capabilities and God-given athleticism, while LeBron was just an athletic freak that could bully his opponents, but was also proven to be a stoppable force in the playoffs, as shown through his finals record. These two excelled within the system of the NBA, they didn't break it. I mean, just think about Jordan. He's amazing, but he's a traditional shooting guard. When he left, the biggest influence he had was shaved heads and a good mentality. The NBA could sit back and enjoy watching him dominate the league. They didn't have to go back to the drawing board and reconsider everything they thought. Remember, breaking kind of has a negative connotation. The NBA is gonna have to push the panic button for an NBA player to break their league. So, who did break the NBA? In my mind, there's only ever been 5 players to do it. George Mikan, Pete Maravich, Shaquille O'Neal, Stephen Curry, and James Harden. These are the 5 players to rise to stardom in a way nobody had ever seen or even considered possible before they arrived. These 5 caused drastic shifts in the aesthetic of the NBA game, influencing what was normal and what wasn't. Also, we're going to address why Wilt Chamberlain isn't here. I know that's probably what most of you are thinking right now. It's going to be addressed later in the video. So with that, let's go down the list. And sorry, Kurzemba, Thon Maker just barely missed the cut. But before we do, I just want to say real quick that I do have a video on specifically just James Harden. I am bringing it up because although Harden is on this list and we will talk about him, this video goes a lot more in depth on him specifically, and if you want to see me elaborate on some of the points that I'm going to make in this one, well, that's the video you should check out. Alright, let's get into this. First was George Mikan, and his reasoning is very simple. First of all, it was the 50s when he was playing, so the game of basketball had yet to evolve into something very complex and massively popular. Coaches and teams were kind of guessing their way around what they were doing since they had very little history of professional ball to reference back to influence them and tell them what was the best way to win games. So the natural assumption for most was just get the most talented players. Get the quickest, the one that can dribble the best and shoot. Doesn't matter if he's 4'4". These short, quick, talented guys can do a lot more on the court, so why not just have them play? When Mikan came into the league in 1948, he and another guy named Jim Brown were the only 2 6'10" players in the league, but by just his 4th year, the league had practically countless players just as tall, if not taller than him. Some examples are Jim Slaughter, Chuck Scher, Jim Neal, Don Otten, and Ray Felix. These guys were acquired in an attempt for teams to just be able to contain Mikan on the offensive end, as well as in hopes that maybe they'd get their hands on the next Mikan. The NBA would never be the same after Mikan changed the norm that talent was the sole factor teams should be looking for when recruiting players. We've seen trends come and go in the NBA, but his influence proved to be far more than that. Nobody has made such a massive and long-lasting influence to the game than Mikan. Taller players, even still today, are considered most ideal, and that will never change. change. Next up is Pete Maravich, a man we all remember now as the first actually creative NBA player. The way he dribbled, the way he shot, and simply the way he approached the game of basketball was flashy, new, and usually resented. I will admit, Maravich did not have a lot of influence immediately, as most coaches and even some players saw what he was doing as foolish and kind of silly, but at the same time, they couldn't guard it. Pistol Pete dominated the NBA, averaging 24, 5, and 4 for his career, and even leading the league in scoring in 1977. At the end of the day, even if we didn't see another player like him for pretty much the entirety of the 20th century, it's pretty clear that that wasn't the fault of his own, and more so the fault of stubborn coaches willing to miss out on a brand of basketball that was clearly working. Now, in the year 2021, behind the back passes, 3-point pull-ups, and through the legs dribbles aren't anything crazy in the slightest, but even still, some of his flashy moves from the 70s have yet to be commonly adopted by most players today. Check out this pass.
Very deceptive pass, usually on a 3-on-1 situation. You start out throwing the ball in this direction like you're going to throw it out to this man coming in, and actually what happens is it goes the other way. So it's a very good deceptive pass.
Don't try it. Don't try it.
It's very tough on your elbows.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. He can do it, and the players playing with him better know that it's coming. Because I always felt this. What good is a great pass, no matter how good it looks?
Maravich was like the Leonardo da Vinci of basketball, just so ahead of his time, people couldn't even comprehend it. He was breaking the NBA in front of the entire sports world, and people just refused to believe it. Unfortunately, injuries got in the way before he could truly prove them wrong and turn into an all-out NBA legend. But for a short span of about 6 years there wasn't anybody on the planet that could even try to guard his new progressive style of play that nowadays has become normal. Thirdly is Shaq, who broke the NBA specifically when he decided to team up with Kobe in LA. As you might have already noticed, I didn't include Wilt Chamberlain on my list of NBA breakers, and that's because he was proved to be stoppable in the playoffs. It's difficult to break the NBA when there's a clear flaw in the way that you play that time and time again keeps you from winning a ring. And oh yeah, the greatness of Bill Russell was always there to stop you. Who was there to stop Shaq? Maybe Ben Wallace gave him some issues, but that wasn't very long lasting, and Ben wasn't a massive deterrent for Shaq for all that long in his career. Nobody says, oh man, that Shaq guy could have been really great if not for Ben Wallace. That's just not a thing. Big, dominant centers don't inherently break the NBA. Orlando Shaq had a solid team built around him that was a pretty traditional good team. Plus, you had guys like Hakeem, David Robinson, and Ewing all there to give Shaq a pretty good run for his money. But then the 2000s roll around, and who's left to stop him? He wasn't quite greedy enough to hold back his entire team the way Wilt was, but he also was aggressive enough to show no mercy to his opponents. It really was the perfect balance. His game wasn't creative or innovative, but if there is literally zero physical way to stop it, consider the NBA broken. Especially if you pair that type of player with Kobe freaking Bryant. Come on now. We actually have two game breakers in the modern day era, which I personally found surprising, but after thinking about it for a little longer, it does make sense. The NBA is currently undergoing a massive transformation where all positions of players are required to play like guards, so you're gonna need some innovators to get things going. First up is Stephen Curry, and his placement on this list should make a lot of sense to most of you. We have never seen a player be able to score 15 points on just 5 possessions on offense. The shooting ability combined with the frequency of which he shot made him able to score more points in the least amount of time anybody has ever seen. I do hate the notion that this 3-point renaissance is happening solely due to Curry, however, because the league was trending this way for a while before he even got there. But Curry sped up the process insanely quickly, and as a result, all of a sudden, we have pretty mediocre shooters now hoisting up 3 or 4 triples a game. It's just a requirement now that you have to be able to shoot. And even bad shooters shoot quite a bit. If anybody fits the mold of a player that made the NBA rethink everything about what their game was, that person is Stephen Curry. James Harden's appearance on this list might be a little more surprising, and he's on here for similar reasons to Pete Maravich, except the league for the most part is open to all the new stuff he brings to progress the game forward. There definitely are a lot of Harden haters out there, but they're kinda just white noise. This man is a spectacular player. Harden is crafty almost to an annoying degree. When he drives to the basket, he's slow. The drives look simple and easy, and yet some slight dribble moves or perfectly timed body movement can just get a defender in a daze. But honestly, most of all, this guy really has just found a way around so many rules. The way he's learned to reach his arms out from under his defender's arms to draw fouls, plus the way he's managed to exploit the two-step travel rule with his step backs and euros. You might not like it, and maybe it's frustrating to watch the game crumble in such a way, but it's true. He manages to tread on that line. It doesn't make any sense, and yet it's happening, whether you like it or not. I'm actually surprised that the NBA hasn't done more to adjust their rules so that a lot of what Harden gets away with is no longer allowed. But they kinda really, both Giannis and Zion have the potential to build off of what LeBron brought to the league and actually someday prove to be full-on unstoppable. And Trae Young is crafty enough to exploit those same rules that Harden has been, as we've seen him do with the amount of free throws he can get. But we're just with the content. You can subscribe. I would appreciate that as much as anything. And with that, what's Mike Korzemba's outro? That'd be a clever way to finish off this video, huh? And with that, cue that music.